Oh my, it looks so funny. Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to try another beauty YouTuber's makeup tutorial, and her name is Judy. What I'm showing you today is a half cut crease look, specifically for Asian hooded eyes. I stumbled upon this video and I was thinking, I'm gonna try this because I've never done half cut crease before, and moreover it's for Asian hooded eyes. Now, I have not tried this makeup myself, but I've watched this video a few times just to gather stuff and brushes that I need for this tutorial, and I'm not even sure if this attempt a successful one or a failed attempt. If you're keen to know what is the outcome, then stay tuned and keep on watching. If you're interested to watch a full video, I have attached the link down in the description. So in Judy's makeup tutorial, she's using a warm tone palette, but I think I'm going to do something different. I'm going to use Huda Beauty Gemstone Obsession Emerald. I've always been a neutral shade girl. I would say all of my eyeshadows are in warm tones and neutral tones. I've never tried cool tones before, so I think today I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and try a cool tone, which is a green one. This will be the first time I'm using a cool tone palette. This is fairly new because I just got it like a couple of days ago. So excited to try it. So in Judy's video, she has done a foundation, prep her face and brows, and I've done my brows and prep my face off camera as well. So I guess in my case, I'm going to be using this pastel green as my base shade.
First, I'm gonna put that straight into my crease. Always put most of the product in the outer corner first, and then I start putting it into the crease using windshield wiping motions and just going back and forth, really building up that color. So you gotta make sure that you are going into this inner part over here, because when you cut your crease, you want some depth to the crease. If there's no product in this inner corner area, the cut crease is not gonna really look like a cut crease. So you wanna make sure you are taking that transition shade all the way in here. And then after I have my transition shade down, I will just take a clean blending brush. This is the Wet n Wild crease brush. I'm just taking it clean, and I'm just going to go around the edges just to further blend. You just want to make sure the transition shade is really blended out, because this is going to be the base for all of the work that we put on top. So if the base looks good, everything else you put on top will look even better. And then I'm going into this shade over here, which is...
I'm going to do my left eye as well.
I'm going into this shade over here, which is called BS. So I'm going to use my Morphe M433, which is always my next brush. And I'm going to put this right in the outer corner.
And as for me, I'm going to be using this, I think this is like a turquoise shade.
I'm going to put this right in the outer corner of my eye. So this shadow is a little bit close to our transition shade. It's probably like a couple shades darker. I feel like if you work in steps, it's going to come out a lot nicer. I'm putting this right into my outer V of my eye with circular motions, and then I'll slowly bring it into my crease all the way into that inner corner, because like I said, we want that definition in that crease. It's going to pay off. The step is very important that you put all the dark shadows into that inner corner crease as well, especially when you're doing a half cut crease. So I didn't dip back into the pan. I'm just using what is ever on my brush and just working with that. Sometimes I'll go dip back in, but most of the time I'll just dip once or twice, and that will be enough product. And as you can see, they just blend into each other seamlessly just because they're very similar in shade. They're not too far off. If you're going to go with a transition shade and the darker shade in the palette, there's not going to be much of a transition. There's not going to be much of a gradient between the two. It's going to be more like a contrast, if you know what I mean. And as always, I like to go in with my Colourpop brush, which is my transition brush, and just go above that once again.
Oh my, it looks so funny. For me, I'll be using this, I think you call it army green.
Okay, and now I'm going to be taking the shade Frank on my Colourpop E9 brush, and as you can tell, as the shades go darker, I'm using smaller brushes. So I'm going to focus this shade Frank, which is like a medium brown, just right in the outer corner as well. We're doing the same kind of motions, but because this brush is smaller, it's allowing us to work in smaller areas. Not too dark, I'm not jumping too crazy high. And I feel like this palette gives you that definition that you can get. Most of the times when I'm doing cut creases, I'm using one palette. I usually would just use a transition, a medium shade, and then a dark shade. There usually isn't another medium shade for me to use. But with this palette, you do get that. So I do truly love this palette a lot. Not for just cut creases, but for multiple different looks that you can create. And then just dragging whatever is left on my brush into the inner crease portion.
I do not think that I have a really dark shade in this palette, so I guess I'm going to be using Colourpop again in French Kiss.
This is the E30 brush. It's just the Sigma pencil brush. And doing the same thing again, but in a smaller section. So this is going to be our darkest shade. So you just want to be very careful with it, because the darker the shade is, the harder it is to blend out. So I'm just using a little bit of product on my brush and then just kind of mimicking the kind of motions that we did earlier. So focusing most of the product in the outer corner first, and then bringing it into that crease. Okay, so let's kind of recap on what we have done and what we have. I'm just gonna take a makeup wipe and just clean the edge and just sharpen it up. Again, if you're a beginner, this is a very helpful tip. Instead of sticking tape, I feel like it's just better to just wipe off like any mistakes. We probably will end up wiping off fallout when we put our cut crease on, but I just like to wipe off the outer edges just so I can get a general feel of how this look is turning out. Also, I want to mention like your mirror. I personally like holding a compact mirror. It's very close. You can see what you have blended, what you haven't, and it's just easier to work with than using like a big mirror. I don't know, try it. I feel like my eyeshadows blend out a lot nicer that I have a really close-up mirror, because I can really see what I am doing. Okay, so now it is time to cut the crease. I like to use the e.l.f. Maximum Coverage Concealer. Again, you can use any concealer. You could even use the concealer that you use to set your eyes, but I'm just trying to finish this concealer up. I'm actually almost finished. This is the only concealer that I use right now to cut my crease. It's what I always use. So I just like to put some on the back of my hand. As you can see, there's not much left. I'm really squeezing this bottle. So the brush that I have been liking to use to cut my crease is the Vanity Planet Small Cream Shadow Brush. So these Vanity Planet brushes, you can only get it in a set, but I honestly love all of these small brushes that come in the set, and especially if you have Asian eyes, you want to use small brushes. It doesn't make sense to go in with like such a huge brush. If you have like really small lids, that's more easier to create a mistake. If you go in with a smaller brush, yeah, it takes a bit longer, but it's more safer, and especially if you're a beginner, it's just a lot easier to control. And since I am doing a half cut crease, I'm gonna focus this in the inner part of my crease, and I just like to paint it on. focusing most of it in that right in the inner corner, and then bring it up just kind of where I think it's going to start, just following the natural curve of my eye and of my crease. So I'm just going to take it up to there and just kind of bring it to the middle of my lid. And the thing with this brush is that it's very flat. If you turn it to the side, it's very flat, so it's very easy to get a sharp line. I'm going to look up. And as you can see, the concealer kind of transferred a little bit above my concealer line. So I'm going to go above that line. Because of our Asian eyes and because we have so many folds and monolids, hooded eyes, whatever you want to call it, do look up. And you are going to use a shimmer shadow. It's going to go past that crease line. And once it goes past that crease line, it kind of blurs out that definition. And then it doesn't really look like a cut crease anymore. So I'm going to go in with this very, very fine paintbrush. Just go to your local craft store and get these really tiny paintbrushes. They're very soft. They're about like $3. I have like a couple of these very fine paintbrushes that I like to use. I think they just come so handy. So I just like to take this brush with a little bit of concealer on it and then just go above that little mark that happened earlier. And you want to look down when you are cutting your crease, because if you look up, your concealer is going to keep transferring. So just look down and kind of raise your brows where your lid space will be smooth to work on.
Well, I do not really have a small brush, so I'm just going to continue using this brush.
Blend that concealer into the shadow. This is going to help make any of the shadows that we place on top just blend into the matte. There's not going to be like a harsh line where it stops. And do you guys see, because of what we did earlier, we put those dark shadows right into that crease. There is already a little bit of definition where that crease line is. If that dark shadow wasn't there and it was just our transition shade, this crease wouldn't be popping out. Because of the contrast between the cut crease and the shadow, it's dark and light, it's gonna make an illusion that's really popping out and we're really just cut it, you know? So now it's for the shimmer shadow to go right on top. You don't have to use shimmer, you could use a matte, that's perfectly fine. So when choosing that color to go right in the inner corner, I would recommend using a very light shadow. So going into this palette, I'm actually going to use Up Front because all of these shades, they're a little bit darker and you're putting it onto that crease. Like I talked about, the contrast between the matte shadow, it's going to just kind of blend into each other and the crease is not going to pop out. So you really want to use a really light shimmer shadow.
I guess this is the lightest one, so I'll be using this.
I have used more of a darker shimmer shadow and it doesn't look as good. It doesn't really look like a cut crease. So you really want to use a really light shadow. If you guys have some spare time, see how it looks. It makes a huge difference. So I'm going to take that shade Up Front on my Makeup Collective number 18 brush. This is my shimmer shadow brush.
I'll be using finger.
I'm going to wet my brush and just taking that shade Up Front. This is going just right on top of that concealer. Just going to pack it on. And you want to make sure you go underneath that concealer. You're not going above that crease line. If you need to use a smaller brush, use a smaller brush, which I probably will, just so I can get up to that crease line. I don't want to go above it. So for my smaller brush, I'll be using the Makeup Collective number 4 brush, which is just, I think, a lip brush, but it's very fine and thin. And it's going to help me go right up to that crease. And bada bing, we have that lid shade on, and this shade as well. I don't think I've ever used this shade before. And you're just gonna take whatever's left on your brush and just kind of blend it in the middle. We will fix that very soon as well. And also another thing with cut creases, you want to make sure you are just working on one eye first and then the other eye, because if you leave the concealer on too long, it's going to start creasing and it's going to lose its tackiness, and you want to keep that tackiness. And as you notice, I didn't set that concealer down because I want the metallic shadow just to like really grab on. I'm going to go back in with my Morphe M433 and the shade BS, which is our number 2 shade. And I'm going to use this to mesh the matte shadow and the dark shadow together. I'm just going to press right in the middle where they meet. Just right here, just dabbing it on. I'm not swirling, I'm not doing anything, just meshing the two together by stamping. And this is going to give that soft blend and add a bit of color. Okay, now I'm going to take one of my other paint brushes. This is a very small brush.
This is the
I'm going
smallest
to take
that I
the shade
have.
Actually, which is the darkest shade that we use. And I'm taking some of my brush and I'm just going to wipe the majority of the product on the back of my hand because it's very dark. I'm going to start from here, the outer corner is, because that's where most of the product is going to go, and then just take it into that crease. That crease line. You just want to define that crease line a little bit. Okay, so that is it for this eye for now. I'm gonna go off camera and cut the crease on this eye, and then we'll be right back to finish off the eye look. Ta-da! So that is both eyes.
I guess I'm going to be doing cut crease for my left eye off camera as well. Be right back.
That is both eyes done. I just feel like half cut creases look so good on Asian eyes. They just make your eyelids look a little bit bigger. Okay, so now that the cut crease action is kind of done, I guess that's like the hard part. Now it is time to give yourself a wing liner. I feel like with a half cut crease, it looks really nice with a wing liner. I know not everybody likes to do a wing liner, but I do. I always do it, whether it's a cut crease or any day of my life, I will do a wing liner. Gel liner that I like to use is the Inglot AMC 77 gel liner. Since this is so dramatic, it's good to do more of a dramatic wing as well. And the brush that I'm using is the Makeup Geek bent eyeliner brush. Okay, so now we are moving on to the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade BS on my Sigma E55. This is that medium shade that we were using. And this shadow is going to match the transition shade that we placed on top. And it's just going to bring the whole look together, making it look very cohesive. And then I'll be using the shade Actually on my Sigma. Actually on my Sigma short shader brush, which is the E20 brush, and I'm going to press this against my lower lash line. And I'm just going to use the Artisy in Modester Smooth Rise Super Gel Eyeliner in the shade Coffee. Super Gel Eyeliner in the shade Coffee, and I'm just going to line my bottom waterline with this. So pretty much now I have my whole face on, and
And I'm just going to pop my false lashes and the rest of my face makeup off camera now. Be right back. So this is the final look of this tutorial. Half cut crease. Let me know if you like more of these videos, like doing makeup tutorials using other beauty YouTubers technique or tutorials. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so I can make more interesting content, more videos for you guys. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more videos from me. Thank you for watching. Bye!